So, in today's presentation, I would like to discuss my experience over the past summer volunteering at a middle school in the south part of China bordering Myanmar, where I have learned about the current social structure, resource distribution system, and the development patterns of education system in third world countries. A brief introduction to the program. It was arranged by my mother's co-worker, a doctor and professor who was working at the local government at the time with the middle school directly. Following are some of the blogs and pictures that I've took during the experience, and the program was arranged by my mother's co-worker, a doctor and professor who was working at the local government at the time, specifically arranged for me. When I arrived at the school, I was very much astounded by the development of the region and very much ashamed of my predilection and assumptions, as I could barely match the town with that in my impression established during my first visit almost 12 years ago. The school in fact had fine facility that is no worse compared to the middle school which I attended. More than half of the school's population are boarding students or living with their grandparents, for the villages which they come from are either too distant or their parents worked in cities as a result of urbanization. With deficiency in legislation, these children were unable to enter school in urbanized areas or move to cities with their parents. Simultaneously, the housing bubble and existing speculation in the market prevented their parents from buying houses that could offer them residency in the city. I spent 10 days at the school, each day visiting up to 6 classes, with each class spending one class period on the introduction of American culture, reasons and benefits to learn English, as well as the methods that could be helpful to the acquisition of a second language. I found many students at which I taught lacking the incentive to learn English simply because there were no reasons to learn this language and no use to. Most of them never were exposed to the thought of even visiting a foreign country, and going to the capital of the province is already a dream that many could not have accomplished. And one of the class which I taught, by the end of the lecture, I asked students to all stand up one by one to say their dream profession in English. Out of a class of more than 50, nearly one half said they wished to join the police force or military. Another 20 or so said they wished to become doctors. A few more said they wished to be singers or dancers or musicians, and a few more said teachers. When they asked my dream profession, which is when I said asset manager or economist, they asked me, "Sister, what does this job do?" Such question almost reduced me to tears. This is when I truly recognized the power of geographical and socio-economic barriers. This is when I truly see a third world country China come in form. This is where I substantiate the meaning of a 0.48 Gini coefficient. And this is when my definition of poverty is reversed completely. This limited provision is resulted from structural violence and chronic destitution, an epitome of the developing countries and regions that is systemically suffering from the imbalanced power dynamic and resource distribution, and exacerbated by the geographical disadvantages. As urbanization becomes the general trend, how to effectively allocate resources to find balances in development and reevaluate the relationship between rural and urbanized areas is an issue for China as well as all third world countries. Then comes to the disillusionment of reality. No matter how hard China has tried to increase the funding for schools in these areas, to build beautiful dormitories and offer financial aid to students, the human capital in the area is unlikely to increase and match the speed at which China is developing. During my generation, the students whom I have lectured are unlikely to even break the barriers for social stagnation and rise to a social level which I was born with. In a society where age discrimination is still prevalent, to resolve these issues and allow the youth voice to be heard is challenging and a nearly invincible task to be accomplished. And unlike business development, educational development requires enduring investments in resource with not only financial capitals but also human capitals. The cycle that China has gone through for the past 30 years and will go through for the following 30 years, with the incipient struggle for the establishment of schools and adequate financial supplies, Now, the urgent need for human capitals with more highly educated teachers and possibly in the near future, the reformation of the entire education system, and where each student could be paid with more attention and resources. It's a cycle that will be endured by many other third world countries with their developing education system. The purpose of this presentation is to show some of the dilemmas that are faced by a developing China, as well as the potential dilemmas that will be faced by other developing economies, and also to see how they became burden upon the youth whom I have taught in the underdeveloped areas. Due to time limitations, some of the other issues that I've also experienced in the same area, such as the incoming refugees from Myanmar as a result of the civil war that was going on, as well as the tension between different ethnic groups in China, are also worth investigating but will be left for later discussions. Thank you.